I just want to follow up on that, and we will turn to the economy in just a moment. But if I could ask, and this is not talking about the N95 mask, and I'm looking at my phone here because I am getting some comments here currently, and this is someone telling me that there was a conference call with healthcare CEOs about tonight's show, and they wanted to encourage the public to cover their faces when they are out in public, specifying they're not talking about the N95 mask. We've heard in recent days that the theory about this virus has changed, and now there are potentially viral droplets. So if I'm just speaking to you rather than coughing or sneezing, I'm at risk. Can you go ahead and speak to that?
So this is something that the CDC is looking at just over the last day or two. They have provided data that shows people may be spreading the virus up to 2 days before they develop symptoms. So I know that they're reviewing the current guidance with masks. There's pros and cons for both. So if you wear the mask, you might be able to prevent speaking or sneezing or coughing, but it also puts you at risk when you're touching your face and bringing it down and potentially having that false sense of security. So we continue to monitor to see what our colleagues at the CDC says, and we'll make that guidance if they change that.
Carrie mentioned the economy. Let's get to that here real quickly. The applications for unemployment the numbers are absolutely staggering, and it's going to be tough for quite a while. Basic facts here. Who qualifies for unemployment in Arizona?
So we have a website, ArizonaTogether.org, that I want to ask everyone to go to. It's not only a place where we've been collecting donations, and I want to thank Michael Bidwell and the Arizona Cardinals for leading it off with $1 million. It's also got all the information. Now let me give the overview on this. The federal government has stepped up with the CARES package. That's a $2 trillion package. There are hundreds of thousands of Arizonans that have been displaced. These are great, hardworking people. Many have never asked for anything from the government, and today they have no income. They have high anxiety. They're concerned that they could lose their apartment or their home. With the CARES Act, along with what we have in state government, we have a lifeline so that they will be able to have dollars through unemployment. And the way we read it, my concern is for everyday Arizonans who have been living paycheck to paycheck. That's who I prioritize first. And then I'm thinking of small business people and medium business people. It seems that the big guys always do okay through the downturn. But all the information for those programs, and these dollars have really been plushed up. You're talking about with the state unemployment, somebody who's going to be able to receive $840 a week over the course of this. They won't lose their apartment. They're not going to lose their home. Now, the challenge is going to be getting these dollars out, both at the federal level to the state, and then I know you're going to ask at some point about the website at the Department of Economic Security. Unemployment hasn't been something we've been dealing with very much in the last several years because we've been booming. All of a sudden, the economy falls off a cliff, and it goes from a couple thousand hits a day to a couple million hits. We've brought in reserve servers. We'll be able to get these issues processed, and it's part of the reason that I brought Daniel Ruiz here. He's our Chief Operating Officer, and he's making certain that we coordinate across state government, so not only does public health lead in terms of what our concern is, that we're taking care of people and that they don't fall through the cracks.
Before we get to Mr. Ruiz, real quickly, should the state, you mentioned $840, $600 of that is federal CARE Act. Is it time for the state to step up as far as unemployment benefits?
Well, the state is stepping up. The state is already giving dollars to homeless shelters, to food banks. The idea here is we want to make sure that people don't fall through the safety net, fall through the cracks. Ted, we're in a position when we started the year, we had $1 billion surplus in our general fund. We have $1 billion balance in our rainy day fund. We're in a position right now where there's been no disruption to our teachers and our school workers. So we're going to make the right decisions once we have the entire package in a clear line of sight to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks here.
Real quickly, Mr. Ruiz, as far as someone watching right now, they've lost their job. They need unemployment benefits, and they need them quick. What can you tell them?
Sure. So we know that now more than ever, the services the government provides is critical. And so we've built additional capacity on the AZDES website. We've added 100 call service workers. They are taking phone calls. We've built capacity there. There are multiple ways that many people can apply for unemployment benefits. Go to ArizonaTogether.org for additional guidance. We are working around the clock, investing in server capacity, hiring workers to answer calls. We want to get these processed as quickly as possible. We know that now more than ever, the continuity of the services that government provides are vital.
Small businesses?
Small businesses can go to our website, ArizonaTogether.org. There we have resources from the Arizona Commerce Authority as well as the Small Business Administration from a federal government perspective, where we can provide options in terms of financial relief and payment assistance.
I want to go to another viewer question. Alethea Lass from Yuma. She asks, is there a mandatory non-essential business closure order or not? If we own a non-essential small business, is it mandatory to close or is it a choice?
We need them to socially distance. What they want to do, a lot of our businesses have already closed, either because there's no business or because the owner decided to do it or because people aren't coming to work. But we're giving them the option as long as they follow the guidance of the stay home, stay healthy, stay connected order.
I want to ask you another question from a viewer, and this goes to do...
And Carrie, I want to follow up on that. The objective here was to protect public health, to make the right decisions so that we get through this pandemic. It wasn't to shut down everybody in the state. It wasn't to shut down the great outdoors. We're seeing much of this is already happening. Those are the unemployment claims that we have. But we want to give additional guidance so that there's clarity there.
We have a question here from one of the radio listeners saying that that their employers do not have social distancing guidance in place, and they are not giving folks an option to stay home when they are sick or think they might be sick. So what do you say directly to those businesses?
If somebody's not going to enforce social distancing and that worker I'm glad that they're thinking this way. They're going to have the benefits. This is why they can go to ArizonaTogether.org and they can access the benefits and they don't have to be there any longer.
But what do you say to the employees?
I say they don't have to be there anymore. They can access the package that has been distributed from the federal government. What I would say to the employers is if law enforcement sees that people are gathering in large groups and not enforcing social distancing, they're going to be the ones that are cited.
We talked about economic issues here as far as renters and those having to make a mortgage payment and no can do right now. What's your message? Well,
if you can't make your mortgage, if you can't pay your rent, you are not going to be evicted. I've put an executive order out there so that these proceedings are not going to take place. Now, it is about 40% of our working folks that have been affected by this. They've either lost their jobs or they've had their pay lowered. If you haven't, if you are gainfully employed, if you're in the same situation that you were before this outbreak happened, we expect you to pay your rent. But we're going to work with everyone through this situation, which I think we'll be able to navigate through over the course of time so that nobody falls through the cracks. That's the top priority, while making sure that we also manage the public health part of it as proactively as possible.
A moratorium on evictions. I think one viewer suggested perhaps a mortgage and rent freeze for 60 to 90 days. Does that make sense?
We're making certain that no one is evicted. We sat down with the landlords and the banks. Ted, this isn't the kind of market where anybody's raising rents.
I wanted to, if you could talk specifically to one viewer who asked, how does the state's delay of evictions actually work? Do you have to show proof?
No, you do not have to show proof. The executive order is protective for 120 days for anyone that's in this situation.
And real quickly, I didn't mention freeze on the number, freeze on the requirement to pay for 60 to 90 days.
It depends on your situation. If you can't pay, you're not going to lose your apartment or your home. If you can, you should keep up.
So you talked about if people are not social distancing, and if you have to get tougher, we have a member from the National Guard here. Would you use the National Guard for enforcement? And then, sir, I'd love to have you speak to that.
Well, first I want to say that the National Guard is doing incredible things. They shored up the supply chain inside our grocery stores that have been so depleted. Just recently, they took Black Hawk helicopters up the Navajo Nation to deal with the outbreak that happened there. And that is not the role of the National Guard unless there is a riot or social unrest. These are issues our law enforcement people are more than capable of handling.
And Major General Michael McGuire, can you just speak to sort of what your role is right now and how you guys are reacting to this crisis in Arizona?
So our role in the Department of Emergency and Military Affairs is to be in support of all of the incident commanders. In this particular incident, as it pertains to the coronavirus outbreak, the incident commanders are in all 15 counties. Our hospital incident command teams, our county emergency management, and we take our lead from Dr. Christ about public health and policy issues as we execute to support and manage crisis. As the governor mentioned, one of the very first things that the governor asked us to do in the Guard was help secure the idea that all 7 million Arizonans would have food, ice, water, and medical supplies. And the most critical part of that is sustaining the food supply and the logistics, that final mile logistics that we do. In Arizona, in the National Guard, there are 8,200 members of the organization. Those soldiers and airmen are part of all 15 counties. They serve as our neighbors, members of our churches and schools, in our local businesses, and when called to duty under the direction of our Commander-in-Chief, Governor Ducey, we take our lead from him about what missions are assigned. So the logistics mission was the priority. As the governor mentioned, there was some emergent issues that occurred over the weekend on the Navajo Nation in both Tuba City and Kayenta and Chinle. We're working diligently with tribal leadership to try to allay those emergent issues and provide a more enduring solution.
Governor, the decision to close schools earlier this week for the rest of the academic year, why then?
Because the guidance from the Centers for Disease Control was that we should continue to socially distance through April 30th. Typically, the school year goes through mid-May. We wanted to give clarity to parents. We also wanted our teachers to know what they've become so skilled at. This idea of distance learning is how we're going to complete the remainder of the school year. And I want to say thank you to Superintendent of Public Instruction, Kathy Hoffman. She's been a partner and a leader, and we've been able to be shoulder to shoulder in alignment in communicating to parents and teachers and public schools across the state in this time.
For students, for families worried, high school seniors right now worried, are they going to graduate? For people who have kids in the 3rd or 4th grade, are they going to make the 4th or 5th grade? What are you telling them? Your child is going to graduate. Your child is going to be promoted. We're going to have some work to do. Now, our kids are working right now. Where they can, they are distance learning. The teachers are coming up with great ideas. There's this closed, not closed hashtag that they've been doing as they begin the day and go through the classes and curriculums. But this did come out of nowhere. There will be some work that needs to be made up, but we're not going to penalize or be punitive to any of our children or our parents as we provide the flexibilities and make sure that they have the essentials that they'll need to know as they complete their grade school career. Some of those essentials include the ability to learn from a distance, and a lot of children in Arizona simply don't have that technological capability. What's being done about that? Well, there's been a lot of people in the private sector and philanthropies that have stepped up and provided tools and dollars. And you can only imagine when you go from learning every day and coming in to hear the bell at 8:05 to all of a sudden you're at home and you're doing this distance learning. So we want to have an equal platform across the state for our students. There will be some that didn't have that, but like I said, we'll have to come back and make up for it. And one more question on this. Are you, Superintendent Hoffman, are you preparing for the next school year?
Yes, we are preparing for the next school year. We want to get through this school year. There's so many questions around what's happening in grade school, what's happening with high school graduations and college graduations and the conference of degrees. And of course, we're thinking about what next year can look like. The first priority, though, is on public health. The better we manage this and put this behind us in a way where we can get back out in some semblance of normal, we'll have a better idea.
And just a moment ago, we had on the screen another viewer question from Marlette Mason. I think this is a really important question. A lot of people have asked about this. What about the kids that don't have internet service or laptops or iPads to do schoolwork? My kid's education is important to me. I'm a single mom. I can't afford these things. Can't get a hold of school or school district for assistance. What do I do?
So we sat down with the providers, just like no one's going to lose their home or their apartment. We sat down with all the major internet providers, and part of this year's budget was to go to rural Arizona and make sure all of Arizona was connected. They're waiving fees, they're upping the power, so anybody that has access to this type of thing, which is pretty much anywhere in the urban core and other parts of our state, and we want rural Arizona to be a part of it, and so many of the places around our schools can do that. But it's not ideal. We have work to do to fix that. This is something we didn't see coming.
And what about providing food for low-income families? And a lot of those kids rely on the food from the school day.
We've increased the benefits that we're providing at the state level. The federal government has worked with us, so people don't have to wait the time to qualify. All that's been waived. Not only do they have access to the SNAP benefits, they have access with approval. We're working with our federal partners on this to hot food as well. I've been with Superintendent Hoffman at some of the schools. We still have the food supply now that the supply chain has been connected, where we're passing out lunches and breakfasts at our schools around the state.
And real quickly, special education students, the resources in schools, that's very important to those folks.
This has been very tough.
Yeah,
this has been very difficult on our special education students. We're going to have some work to come make this up, and we're going to address that, and we acknowledge that. And all of us are challenged by what's happening here. No one more than the parents of our special education students.
And I did want to get one other viewer question in here, and this is a bit of a tough one, but you're here for transparency. Aaron Jade Helm asked, please ask the governor why it took school superintendents drafting a letter with 52 signatures and closing districts on their own before the state super made the call, and why it took mayors across the state sending a similar letter to the governor before he issued a stay-at-home order.
Well, the first thing I want to say is we have been able to handle the unfolding events in this crisis in a way that keeps the state together, that stays ahead of the curve. Of course, we would love if it was possible in a safe way to have our kids inside a classroom and learning. In this situation, that's not the case. I need to work with other leaders in education, and thank goodness for Superintendent Hoffman, where we've been able to make these announcements in concert and in time so parents have had clarity.
Governor, we're running out of time here, so the state is watching, and the state is afraid. People are afraid. They're frightened. They're concerned. They're confused. What are you telling them? I mean, just a straight message. What are you saying to people that are watching right now and they're at wit's end?
I'm saying to people that we are going to over-communicate. When I know something, you're going to know something. We're going to get the facts out there, and I understand some of the confusion. This has been so rapidly changing. We see what's happening in parts of the world and parts of the country, and as we know more and have more information, we've changed and we've acted on that, and we'll continue to do that. This is going to continue to be a situation that we need to deal with in a fluid way so that we take care of all Arizonans, and we're going to continue to be out there answering the tough questions and over-communicating, and I'm very confident that I have the best people around me that are working on this 24/7, and it's their top priority.
And you have a lot of intel that you're getting every day. How long do you believe, honestly, that this is going to last? Governor Cuomo said today that New Yorkers should be expecting well into August.
Well, I don't want to make any predictions on where we are. Anybody who's telling you that they know when this is guessing, and they don't know. What I do know is what our plan is going to be for April and May, and we are going to be prepared for anything beyond that. But right now, I'm looking out 60 days. That's what we're going to be prepared for. I'm confident that we'll be able to do anything beyond that, but that's where Dr. Kara Chris said not only are we going to have our surge in illnesses, but also hospitalizations. And if we can get through that, I think we need to reassess come May 1st.
All right, Governor, General, Doctor, Mr. Ruiz, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for answering our questions and our viewers and listener questions as well. Thank you. And don't forget all of the state resources available to you online, where you can get real-time updates on the state of Arizona and COVID-19.
We also want to make sure that you know that 80 radio and TV stations around Arizona committed to broadcasting this town hall. They want the same answers you do. So you should continue to lean on your local media and let them know what's on your mind as we navigate this unprecedented crisis together.
And again, thank you to all who participated tonight. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your responses. Thank you, Gary Pena. Nice working with you. And thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay informed, stay solution focused. Have a good evening.